now I'll get back to the disastrous renewable energy push that's, of course, forcing up power prices, and it's dividing communities around the country, especially in regional areas. We've shown you the environmental concerns about wind farms being built in Queensland, with bushland being cleared and scarred. Then there's tourism operators in Newcastle up in arms over a multi-billion-dollar plan for gigantic offshore wind turbines. Farmers in New South Wales and Victoria are arcing up about plans to push transmission lines through their properties to link renewables projects to the national grid. And as I told you back in March, Port Macdonald locals are angry about a $4 billion offshore wind project off the South Australian coast feeding into Victoria. A departmental consultation was held with concerned locals last week, who were told by some bureaucrat to put their phones down and stop filming. Have a look. Well, after months of back and forth, the local member there, the local Liberal member Tony Passon, has finally secured a meeting with the Energy Minister Chris Bowen in Canberra. Tony joins me now from Canberra, along with abalone diver Chris Carrison, who's chair of the Southern Coast Ocean Care Community Group. Thanks for joining us, both Tony and Chris. Let's go to you first, Tony. You think this project's got so many concerns for the crayfishing industry and other people in Port Macdonald in that area that you wanted the minister to come to the area and see it, but they sent some bureaucrats and now you've at least got a meeting with him in Canberra.
Well, that's right, Chris. The minister is the person charged with determining whether this area is suitable for development. We're asking him to determine that it's not. Don't know how you can do that without actually visiting, perhaps going out onto the ocean with a fisherman or even under the sea with Chris. But the reality is he hasn't done that. He has taken a meeting, which we'll have tomorrow, with those that are interested in this, including Her Worship the Mayor, cray fishermen, environmentalists, wreck fishermen, etc. It's no substitute for visiting. He did come to Portland in Victoria. It was only another 100 kilometres down the road. And we're hoping that he listens to the community that don't want to see this development taking place off the South Australian coast.
Yeah, it's an incredible project. The expense and trouble it's going to go to, I wonder about that. But the environmental aspect's important. Chris, tell us about your concerns as a fisher. We've spoken to the cray fishermen who are worried that they'd be locked out of a vast area where they would normally get crayfish. What are your concerns?
Chris, there's a phenomenon that happens at Port Macdonald called the Bonnie upwelling, which is a cold, clean water upwelling that happens every year, and it is driven by the southeasterly winds. If those towers interact with the wind and slow it down, the upwelling has a potential to die off before it reaches its full potential, and that upwelling is the lifeblood of the coastline there.
So you're saying it could actually affect some of the weather and ocean patterns in the area?
Well, it certainly has the potential to reduce the wind which is carrying that upwelling. And the upwelling is nutrient rich. It's followed by blue whales, tuna, followed by hundreds and hundreds of different bird species. Some of the rarest birds in the world follow it. And these wind towers are going to be right in the middle of that upwelling.
Yeah, it's an incredible area to be putting a project like this, Tony. Tell us about any other concerns from the locals. It's a pretty wild coastline and a lot of people live along there.
Well, it is the Southern Ocean, Chris, you're right. I think the most important thing is the department is looking in its consultation to see how competing interests can be balanced. The issue here is principally around the cray fishing zone, which is within the reef, which is exactly where you want to put these assets. There'll be an exclusion zone. You've previously spoken to others in relation to a development off the New South Wales coast. In that case, it'll be 1,800 square kilometres. In our case, I estimate it could be as much as 275 square kilometres. And there's just no way to balance those competing interests, because that's exactly where the fishermen want to go to fish. And it's not like the pelagic fishery where fish like tuna and others can swim through this zone. You can catch them on the other side. Lobsters are territorial and you have to fish in the reef. That's exactly where these assets will be. It's exactly where the exclusion zone will be. Yeah, this is what the crayfish were saying. Yeah. These are the rocky reefs. This is where they know that they get crayfish and they won't be able to go there anymore. So they're understandably worried about their whole future.
Tell us from your point of view, Chris, are you wanting more information? Could you be convinced that this project is workable, or are you just out to stop it?
I can't see. We've done, our committee has done now 15, 16 weeks of research, solid hours and hours, and we cannot find a positive from it. There is no positive outcome. We don't get the power out of the project. There was a study done by the proponent.
We better wrap it up there, Chris. Thanks for joining us. You don't get the power, that goes across to the other state. Thanks for joining us, Tony. Let us know how the meeting goes tomorrow.
Thanks, Chris.
Tony Passon there, the member for Barker, and Chris Carrison, an abalone diver from down there on the southeast coast of South Australia near the Victorian border.